the irony of this topic is that almost no one is a micromanager. We get probably a call a year and they say, we're in Texas, so they say, we got ourselves a micromanagement problem and some of our leaders micromanage, and can you do a class on that? And definitely we can do that. And usually we know the person who's calling. And they're like, all right, well, when can you come out? And so we'll say, all right, well, you want to do next month or whatever, we'll find a date that works. And they'll say, how long do you need? And then I'll say, about 2 minutes. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? And I'll just lay out freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. If they're freshmen or sophomores, it's not micromanagement, it's management. Keep doing it. Keep telling them how to do the job, what to do. This is what you do. No, do it like this. But if they're juniors or seniors, you have to stop that and back off, because there's nothing people hate more than being told how to do a job that they know how to do.
Welcome to Management Muse.
Because everybody deserves a better manager.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today on Management Muse. I'm your host, Cindy Baldi, and my co-host, Jeffrey Tumlin.
Hello.
And today is sponsored by the Uncertainty Playbook. It is our book. There you go. Jeffrey, if you're watching on video, is demonstrating it. He's like Vanna White over there.
Hey, you better get you one.
And if you're interested in buying it, it's good for, especially like this time of the year, it's good for people who are trying to make some changes and deal with some uncertainty at work. And we give you some 14 strategies to give you more confidence in dealing with uncertainty. It is available on all of our websites and Amazon.
True.
That's true enough. Okay, today we are talking about how to hold employees accountable without being the villain.
That's right. Accountability without buttholism.
Yeah, well, we see a lot of people worry about this.
We see a lot of people.
And it's making
and usually they're not being buttholes. Usually they're going to the other side. And so nobody actually knows what they really want.
Right.
Right. They're being too nice.
Yeah. And there's an interesting study from Harvard that it was one of the HBR blog posts. And they said that like basically when they measured how employees felt about managers who were micromanagers versus aloof.
Yeah.
People absolutely hate aloof more.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's an important distinction. Let's actually start with SLT then. It's been many, many years, but three psychologists, Hershey, Blanchard, and Johnson, who two of them would actually go on to become multi-millionaires. Blanchard for the 1 Minute Manager. And then Johnson, I think Johnson was the Who Moved My Cheese guy. But before they hit lightning in kind of pithy, both very thin, pithy books, but they are multi-million bestsellers. They were very good psychologists. And they wrote a theory about how people tend to progress in a job role. So when I start a role, I start off and I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm very motivated. And then at some point I hit the sophomore slump metaphorically where I realize how much I don't know. I still don't know a lot about what I'm doing, but now I start to see these parts of the job aren't fun and there's a lot that I don't know. And if I push through the sophomore slump, I make it to junior year where you pick up one of the most stable relationships in all of social science, which is the link between being good at something and being motivated to do it. And so the better I get at fishing, the more I want to fish. The better I get at making pizza, which you and I are struggling with right now, the more we want to make pizza. We were just in the two best places in America for pizza, in our opinion, Naples-style pizza. And the people there, the better you get at making pizza, the more motivated you are to do it. The one place we went in Miami Beach, Legenda, they're just having fun. Yes. And that's very stable and very durable.
They're always having fun on Legenda.
Yeah. I would say we're in the sophomore phase where we bought this new oven, but we don't know how to use it. We know the kind of dough we need, but we can't find it.
I think we're actually in the freshman phase.
We may be. I push myself too far ahead. And so we don't know, we're still motivated, but, starting to get old. And my mom she's got the oven, but she's, I think, not as motivated as us.
Oh, your mother's definitely not
And
as
so
motivated
she's
as
dropping
us.
out, right?
Right.
And so it's us left pushing this pizza forward. And
this all started because Houston doesn't have any good VPN pizza places.
yeah,
Listen,
VPN
Houston
just is the
restaurateurs.
certification of the Naples. Yeah, if you're listening, if you're somebody rich from Houston and looking for something to do, start a Naples style pizza.
But you have to get VPN certified.
Yeah.
Which is Vera Pizza Napolitani or something like that. But it's a certification that includes training, and any restaurant on that list is amazing.
Yep, it's true. Yeah, VPN. Just look up VPN. Anyway, there's none in Houston, so we've had to do it ourselves.
We literally bought a pizza oven that goes up to 900 degrees.
Yep.
To basically make our own VPN pizza.
Yeah, and we don't know what we're doing. So we
have not had the training.
We just came from Miami Beach and San Diego, where they're the best pizzas that we've had anywhere in the world, including in Italy. And they're what you call seniors. They've achieved mastery. And at that point, the importance of this theory, going back to this theory of basically in the freshman, you don't know what you're doing, but you're highly motivated to do it. When you're a sophomore, you lose some of your motivation. You realize how hard it is. And a lot of people drop out. My mom dropped out of pizza making. We're hoping to hold through, me and you, until we make junior year, where we get good enough at it that you pick back up a more enduring type of motivation to stick with it. And then senior year is mastery, where you're really good at something. Weirdly, the quirk at senior year is when you get really good at something, you can continue on that path and have a wonderful months and years doing the job and being happy or making the pizza, which I think that characterizes Legenda in Miami Beach. Or you can get restless and bored. And so seniors are actually vulnerable. But the power of this theory and how it relates to accountability is when it first came out, it was revolutionary in the study of management and leadership, because it was saying the first thing you need to do is figure out where are your people in this progression, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, in terms of the metaphor. And then based on that, you adjust
your leadership style,
the combination of your directive behavior, telling them how to do it, and your supportive behavior, kind of boosting their morale to push through. And it leads to a very clean recipe in management, of which there's not a lot of clean recipes, where when people are freshmen and just starting out, they need direction because they don't know what they're doing, but they don't need a lot of support because they're motivated. It's brand new. When they're sophomores, they still need direction because they don't know what they're doing, but they need also some support because they're starting to see how tough the job is. Right now, my mom needs support to keep going with the pizza, or she's going to fall out of this. Then junior year hits, and you can begin to back off on the direction because people actually know how to do what they're doing. You can begin backing off on the support because they don't need as much of that, because they're starting to internally get that durable motivation because they're good at something. And then senior year, if you have a thriving senior, they need almost nothing. If you have a restless and bored senior, they need some way to have renewal or energy back in the work. In the case of the pizza place in Miami Beach, the main guy, the owner, is named Giovanni, and he's won pizza contests, throughout the world. I think what actually keeps him motivated is that he basically has trained a bunch of 20 and 30-year-olds to make pizza.
Well, and he also invents things. Like he just invented mozzarella ice cream.
He did invent mozzarella ice cream,
which was pretty tasty. It wasn't as sugary as like normal ice cream, but it was like super creamy and really good.
Yeah.
But so he's doing stuff like that. So he's taking the mastery and then figuring out like new ways to apply it.
Yeah. And I would say he's a thriving senior. And he doesn't need much, yet he's been making pizza for a very long time. But there are people out there who've gotten good at making pizza. I mean, I think we have a friend who has a pizza place, and I think
he was just previously much more engaged with it.
Yeah, and I think he got really good at it. They made a lot of money, and he got bored, that's not unusual to get bored as a senior. And then you have to either look for renewal, or in his case, he's looking for another job. And come back to this topic that we're talking about, accountability. The problem that you and I see is that people back off on giving people direction before they should. And so they will, for usually two main reasons, stop telling freshmen or sometimes sophomores how to actually do the job, give them kind of direct feedback. And that can be number one, because they think, oh, well, I don't want to be a micromanager and I want to lay off and I want to see how far they can go. Some of which is, that's a nice default to have, but it would be nicer if you were more precisely watching how knowledgeable is my subordinate right now? And do they still need direction? The other reason people tend to back off is that another person will want to be like, look, I don't want my boss giving me this much direction. I think they probably think I should know it by now. And so they will basically send signals or just outright tell their supervisor, hey, I'm good, I got this, when they don't.
Well, and I was just going to say that. I think that sometimes when people are struggling, they actually lash out, partly because of frustration, but also because like they don't want to be visible. Yeah. And so you being directive and supportive, like that's like the manager's entire focus being on you. That really feels like you're very, very visible. And if the employee has any problem with like confidence or self-efficacy.
Yeah, self-efficacy is just a scientific.
Well, it's just more specific than confidence. It's more related to like having confidence that you can do a particular activity, whereas confidence is more global.
More global, yeah.
But
wake up, nerds. We're talking about self-efficacy.
But if you have issues with that, and we've seen this with some employees, well, like they'll act in a way to get you to go away. But True. They actually need you. They're still freshmen.
Yeah.
Or sophomores.
Yeah, I actually had this happen yesterday. There's somebody about to make a huge job leap, and the organization bought 8 months of transition. Like they're actually paying 2 people. And the person making the leap doesn't want to appear like, won't this person think I should know this already? Well, no, the company is spending a ton of money because they know you don't.
So once you tell them a little bit about what micromanagement is, since this is an underlying fear.
Right. So we get probably a call a year from, it's actually a lot of times it's a fire department, but it's been other places. And they say, we're in Texas. So they say, we got ourselves a micromanagement problem and some of our leaders micromanage. And can you do a class on that? And well, yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. We can do that. And usually we know the person who's calling. And they're like, all right, well, when can you come out? And so we'll say, all right, well, you want to do next month or whatever. We'll find a date that works. And they'll say, how long do you need? And then I'll say about 2 minutes. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? And I'll just lay out freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, what we just talked about, and say, if they're freshmen or sophomores, it's not micromanagement, it's management. Keep doing it. Keep telling them how to do the job, what to do. This is what you do. No, do it like this. But if they're juniors or seniors, you have to stop that and back off, because there's nothing people hate more than being told how to do a job that they know how to do. That is micromanagement. And that's the distinction of the manager figuring out, do they actually know, or are they still in the early phases where the best thing I can do to help them climb the learning curve is to give them feedback on the appropriateness of their actions? That's straight out of the playbook for building expertise from Anders Ericsson.
How do you know when they're ready?
It depends on the specific job. And so go back to the pizza example, because why not? You know that they're ready to make the pizza on their own when they can actually make pizza on their own. And so I know it's more complicated we work with
because there's a lot of stuff that knowledge
that you can't
workers
risk. So you can't risk, you mess up a pizza, it tastes terrible, it costs 30 minutes and $20. We work with a lot of physicians. some of them are surgeons. And depending on the type of surgery, it can take up to 7 years. And so that's a very long time. So that because you can't just say, all right, good luck, take out this tumor. Because of the nature of the risk tolerance, sometimes you have to assume a little bit longer runway is needed before you turn them over to it.
I think that the one of the differences in that is that the expectation is clear, right? So when you're going to get a medical degree, depending on which track you decide to go on for your specialization, like there's a formal program that's involved, and it says you're going to have this many years of being a resident and having oversight. And so I think that expectation makes it more it's acceptable for somebody to be overlooking their shoulder.
Yeah.
Whereas most people are going into jobs and it's just not that clear how long that training period is. And then because the expectation isn't clear, and then we get into people who feel like, well, you get people who are afraid of being caught up as being an imposter.
And companies run lean, so the manager is busy anyway.
Right. And so all of a sudden, that's two different things. So I think you get caught up in being an imposter. You don't want the visibility. And if you don't have an expectation that it's a longer period of time that you'd be getting trained, then you start to feel like it's micromanagement. And it'd be, helpful to just actually have a conversation about what you think, and probably go on the longer side, like that window of period where you're going to be more in their shorts. And I think you set the expectation for longer, just so that way, if they are a little slower, you're not making them feel like they're wrong. And people who get out of the window sooner can feel like, wow, I really nailed that. Right. Yeah. And so I think you set a longer expectation for what that is going to look like, where you're going to have a lot more oversight as a manager. And then I think what you're talking about is the opposite, which is, that like organizations at this point are operating so leanly that you have managers who might have good intentions, but like they don't have the capacity to give you the oversight, and you really are sinking or swimming. And
which is a terrible way to do it.
Yeah.
That's the old way that's from the 1950s, before we started studying development of expertise and management.
But it's the reality in a lot of organizations, especially lean ones and especially small ones, because small ones, you're expected to do a million different jobs and not have just like one specialization.
Yeah.
And that means that you leave somebody to figure things out on their own. And then you come back around and they've been doing it on their own, and maybe they've been doing it wrong, but they've been doing it. And now you're coming back after all this time that you haven't been paying attention, and you're going to tell them that they're jacked up. Well, like nobody's going to like that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They're very different mechanisms, as you point out. And I think it's a good insight that in the rare places where there's actually an apprenticeship period to be a surgeon, to be a plumber, to be an electrician, where there are clear gates of here's how you progress through to the next level. And there's often a time period attached to that. People are a lot more open to getting feedback
and
giving feedback to people under them, their direct reports in that. But the vast majority of businesses we operate in have absolutely nothing like that. That you just, here, you're doing the job. This is your supervisor. We're going to have one-on-ones. We're going to have one-on-ones every 2 weeks, and then we're going to cancel
actually
50% of them.
Right. I was just going to say that's actually a pretty high rate, where, the research does say like weekly
would be better.
Would be better.
Yeah, for engagement. And we go back to this, you and I are now getting old enough to where we've lived through 2 cycles of generational repetitiveness. So people always want to talk about the generations, and it used to be the millennials, and now it's Gen what do they call them? Gen Z.
Yeah.
And then
I don't know. Everybody's still blaming the millennials. Those poor millennials.
Poor millennials. I know. We love you, millennials.
We do love you, millennials.
Anyway, we've gone through 2 cycles as Xers, right? We've heard people say the same stuff about the millennials that they're now saying about Gen Z. And a lot of it, one of the things that comes up a lot is, well, they need so much praise and they need, they're always asking for, how am I doing, et cetera.
Everybody needs praise when they start.
Right. It's not a function of they're weak and need praise and a trophy. It's a function of they're freshmen and sophomores and they actually need the direction.
Well, yeah, praise is a form of feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's again, to use the scientific jargon of developing expertise from Anders Ericsson, the seminal article on the violin studies from, I forget what year, but it's, in order to get good at something, you have to actually, number one, do the thing. And then number 2, get as fast as you can, rapid feedback on the appropriateness of your actions.
And so that kind of leads
Which usually comes from a coach or a boss.
Right. And so that leads us into, why is this so hard? Like, why are managers not doing this? And we've talked about the micromanagement, but now let's talk about basically people who don't want to be perceived as like argumentative or
which is almost everybody,
or conflict.
Yeah. So, people think arguing is a bad word. There's an assessment that we use a lot. It's borrowed from the social science on having it's what we would call constructive conversations, but it's called argumentativeness, but people think it's a bad word. But we have to argue. We have to be able to say, no, that's not right. I see it this way, and sort our way through that. And feedback can feel like an argument, especially if your direct report's been doing it for a little bit. It's easy to feel defensive as a direct report. Why am I still getting this feedback? You have all of the competence issues come up, like I should know how to do this. And so there's an urge or an instinct to want that feedback to stop even before you may know fully what you're doing. And then humans, we have many faults, but we are exquisitely evolved to sense interpersonal strife, because that's what kept us in the tribe or banished us from the tribe. And so the people who weren't good at sensing that were much less likely to pass their genes along.
Yeah, they were the food testers.
They were, right. Let them
look at this crazy thing. Let's see if it's actually edible. Here you go, Bob.
Yeah. Let's let them, here, you can chase the saber-toothed tiger. Oh, my bad. That didn't work out too well.
That has the implication that if we know that the things that disrupt our group membership is bringing up like things that people don't want to hear, whether that's feedback or actual just flat out conflict, then we usually pull back and we try to preserve the harmony over actually being constructive.
That's right. Yeah, we will. Almost everything that we're talking about all flows to the same inclination that the point of this podcast is to try to overcome. You're, as a manager, going to be far more likely to stop giving feedback and direction before you should than the opposite. The irony of this topic is that almost no one is a micromanager. We feel every one of them because they're so weird. And what almost everybody is a non-manager before they should, meaning they're pulling back the management and leaving their person struggling in a black hole when they still could benefit from the direction and the coaching to be able to more quickly move up the learning curve. That's the irony, is that the people who call us for a micromanagement class don't actually have a micromanagement problem. They have a management problem.
Right. Because, I mean, I can think of times in my life where I've had somebody who should have been more instructive, like for whatever reason, like whatever group I was part of. And they weren't. And it was sink or swim. And so I figured out how to swim. And then when they came back to try to tell me how to do the stroke, I was like, screw you. Like, where have you been?
Right.
And so like, and that's where it starts. That's where micromanagement, I think, gets mislabeled.
Yeah, sure.
Like,
I could have used you.
I could have used,
3
how
weeks ago.
dare you come back after I've suffered?
Yeah. Yes. And everything underlying this entire podcast, management, before there was a science of it where people had spent their careers trying to figure out how to better supervise people, there was on-the-job training, which is what we're talking about. Here, good luck. And what happens if your management style, as you call it, laissez-faire, which is just similar for laying back and not doing anything, or OJT, on-the-job training, where you just go, good luck, figure it out. Well, what happens is you have to have, it takes a lot longer and there's a lot more washout and turnover, which is a long way of saying people do not develop anywhere near as fast as they might otherwise. And you lose people who you might otherwise have kept. And so it's very costly to not help people in those crucial early phases.
Sure, because I just want to say this because I'm not sure it came through, but you increase the turnover because in being aloof, you're sending the message you don't care.
Yeah, sure.
And so then they stop caring about you or the organization.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on Management Muse. We are a podcast / YouTube channel that we hope is entertaining and educational. If you are on YouTube, we would appreciate you subscribing and maybe leaving a comment and a like. If you are on any of the podcasts listening to this, we would appreciate stars, following, comments, all the good stuff. We want to say thank you to Sarah and Rebecca. And then just as a last minute reminder, we also want to mention that we are management and communication professionals working in the field, but also have degrees that back us in science. All that being said, we are talking in generalities on this podcast. We do not actually know your particular situation. So proceed with common sense and maybe a little bit of experimentation on your end. And we hope that you make the world a more beautiful place by making work a more enjoyable place. See you next time on Management Muse.